We are so impressionable. We don't even have really a thinking process in those early years, and we are just absorbing from the environment and connecting neurons within the brain according to that environment. So we might want A, B, and C in our lives from an adult, self-aware perspective. But if your inner child didn't see that as a possibility or didn't see that as a truth, you will have problems creating it.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Daily Soul Bytes Show. I am your host, Bola Abimbola, and this is the show where we interview expert authors and coaches and entrepreneurs to share their insights for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Jo Gifford, who also happens to be my coach, my inner child healing coach. Hi, Jo.
Hello, Bola. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, and I'm going to read a bit of Jo's bio before we start. Jo Gifford is a light language channel, a healer, and intuitive. And her journey of exploring and understanding what we are doing here on this planet and where we are evolving to has been the focus of her life during the past 35 or so years. Her mission is to share the knowledge and understandings gained along the way. This is wonderful. And I should tell everyone listening that there will be some light language that Jo will express in between the conversations, and there are different parts of her that from different nouns that will contribute to the conversation as we go. So just so you're aware. So thank you for coming, Jo. Thanks for joining me today.
You're very welcome.
Yes, yes. So, because we met about a year ago when I came for your inner child workshop, and we've been in contact, and I've been part of your coaching group since then. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic year connecting with you every month.
So, thank you, Jo. So, tell us about inner child healing.
Okay. We think as human beings, we are choosing how to be in this world. We think that we are choosing how to act in that situation or act with that person, act within that challenge. But we aren't really choosing it. We are such that what we saw, felt, and heard as a child, we absorb as a sponge. We absorb it as gospel truth. And many people often never question why they think this is good or this is bad or this is the right thing to do or the right path to take. We are in a way programmed. And, the Jesuits have that phrase, give us the boy till 7 and we will give you the man for life. And I think essentially what they're saying is whether that's a great job or healing your relationships, whatever it is, the inner child's perspective is having a greater influence than people realize. And it's important to understand that this is about know thyself. This is about know what makes you tick. What is it? Why do you think, for example, that an university education is the right thing to do, and being a farmer doesn't have as much importance, or vice versa? We're talking about not just big topics, we're talking about just everyday choices and perceptions. So inner child healing is first identifying all of those concepts and then challenging them, analyzing them, understanding how the emotions are actually tied up in those perspectives, and then healing them if need be. So it's not saying that everything in the inner child is terrible, but if you feel blocked or if you feel that you're not living up to your potential or if you're not good enough, etc., my first piece of advice would be to go back and have a look at your inner child. What happened to you in those first 7 years, and what opinions or perspectives did you form in those very early years?
Okay. Thank you, Jo. I mean, it's such a powerful thing to know that as young as 7, we're almost set. That is so
Yes.
scary. That by the age of 7, whatever it is that you are going to be in life is already almost predetermined. And there is a lot of reprogramming that we then have to do. The good thing is that reprogramming is possible, but if we do not know that we are already set, that we've already been conditioned and programmed, we could really be running for life before we can even walk. And I think this is something that I feel very strongly about as well. But sometimes we have to take a step back, to take that step, that big step forward, because we can get away with some of the little steps that we need to do. But when it comes to the big things, big goals, that's when we really know that there are some limits within us. What would you advise somebody who has discovered that there are some big limits within? They've come to that self-awareness and they've realized that there are lots of things. I know your website has got so many resources. You've got tools, and your YouTube channel has got lots of videos. But what are the kind of maybe 1, 2, 3 steps that you would advise somebody who has discovered that they have all these limits, they have all these patterns? Some of them are ancestral, but they still our responsibility in this life, in this now. What would you advise? What steps would you ask them to take? I would say contact Jo. What would you say?
All right. It's a simple thing to do, really. All I would suggest that you do is get a notebook, and at the end of every day, see what has come up in your day for you to deal with. It might be something that happens at work. It might be something that happens that you see. So anytime you have some sort of emotional reaction, anytime you're triggered by anything, big or small, write it down and ask, is there a pattern unfolding? So if things happen over again and over and again, it shows you really what's at the bottom of the programming. So in looking at a day-to-day basis, you begin to almost in a way create a map of you, your brain, and your thoughts and your perceptions. Also do some journaling of what you remember of the first 7 or so years of your life. You may not remember much, but what you do remember is important. So if you start doing this analysis, you will start to understand that you have these perspectives, and these small things reveal to you why you may be blocked in something bigger that you are attempting to achieve. I mean, we're all pretty similar. We all have similar bottom line issues of low self-worth or comparison or whatever it is. We're pretty similar as human beings. So when you look into this and start to define what it is, oh, I doubt myself, or this or that, then you can see how it might be affecting a big change in your life that you are trying to achieve. But again, it's a simple day-by-day process. Sit down, work out what you did, how you felt about it, what other people did, how you felt about what they did. And if you do it each day, you'll begin to see that you are drawing the same situations again and again. They might be slightly different. The scenarios might be slightly different, but your emotions at the bottom line of that reaction will be the same. And you can probably see it over your lifetime. So if you look at every relationship you've had, and bottom line, what was the issue what tripped you up in this relationship? If you look at your work, every job you've ever had, what was the reason it wasn't great? What was the reason that you left? And if you can bottom line it to an emotional reaction, you often find it's the same thing. So it's essentially taking a higher viewpoint, the big picture viewpoint, and looking at your world and the patterns. And those patterns generally can be found, or the beginnings of those patterns in this life will be found in the inner child programming. And if you never ask, where does this come from? Or even question, am I choosing how to feel about this or that? Then you will often never break out into who you can truly be. Many people go, leave this life without ever asking, why did I make the choices that I did? Who would I have been if I had made a different choice?
Mm. That's powerful. That's powerful. Because there's the need for that observer role, to really come to that place where we are healing ourselves as empowered beings. Because there may be a tendency for us to see ourselves as victims. And I think one thing that your work really triumphs with is the fact that you enable your clients to really operate from a place as empowered beings, that observer. So that's really, really powerful. And then you mentioned something about, as we move away from those programs, as we become much more aware of those programs and begin to reframe them, begin to um, give ourselves a different perspective in different areas, because we're talking about different levels here. As we, even as we heal on one level, where we are embodying the new us. Could you talk a bit about what happens after we have come to a place where we are experiencing a lot more emotional freedom?
Well, it's almost like there are, at least initially, two steps or two parts to the mission that we're in. It is to understand that who we are is not Joanne or Bola, that this is our current coat or our current avatar, but that who we are is the bright light being spark that is inhabiting this body. And that is our true nature. That is our true unlimited nature. Ijukaddereste neokukebetsetsa. Injakatariaste ute ikea nukayochutsatsa. Hindeatsia shosheniuku odeastea niakayatseka. Idestusta ikea niakaya u bebetiakayatsetsa. So when you've understood your emotional triggering, your emotional programming, your conditioning, and begin to observe it, it no longer owns you. It no longer is your identity. So you no longer say, I am angry. You say the avatar or Joe or this part that needs to be healed is feeling anger. And that as you begin to understand that, it allows you to sort of turn a page and you find that emotional freedom that you're talking about. You may feel the emotions come up again, but you understand quite quickly that it isn't the truth of who you are. It's just an energy frequency that you are in the middle of transmuting. And it's a habit in a way, these emotional states. It's in a way like an addiction. It's so familiar to fly off the handle or to be depressed. And it's very difficult to imagine how else you could be while you are still identifying it as you. So the more you pull back and look at this and see the patterns and see how you were conditioned to see these things and feel these things and perceive yourself in certain ways, when you start to pull out and see that, you then find that emotional freedom. Sovereignty is an internal state of understanding your emotions and loving yourself for needing to heal them, finding compassion, but then understanding that it isn't the truth of who you are. Who you are is a limitless, timeless being on a journey of exploration in this realm, in an experiment of polarity. And we're moving out of that. So when you turn that page, when your past is complete, so the affirmation is, my past is healed, and I am forgiven and born anew. So we move into a new phase that isn't influenced as much, if at all, by those emotions. So what happens is we want to try and direct where we're going next. And in fact, this is a shift that I've gone through very recently of closing the door on that past, having no regrets, having no doubts or judgments that I could have done it better, or I should have done that, or I failed there. That's all done. My heart, as I say, is now lighter than a feather. Because if I was to face God right now, I could look him, her, whatever in the eye and say, I have no regrets. I love who I am. I did everything that I did as a learning, and there is nothing that I feel bad about or shame about or regret about. And would walk through those pearly gates, if that's the analogy you want to use, head held high. And in a way, according to society, I shouldn't do that, I suppose. I haven't lived according to how society thinks we should live, which is having a family, having a career, acquiring things. I have done none of the usual societal, reached any of the societal benchmarks at all. So, ejo takbayati ashtukstande sikike, embeti shezukatiatsaka, ejo shayasha. And that's because my focus has been on the journey, the spiritual journey. As you said in my bio, it's true. The last 35 years have been about, what am I doing here? Trying to understand myself, trying to navigate this journey from a greater level of awareness. So this recent shift is to have turned that page, to have come to peace with my past. And what we want to do is try and use that brain structure to work out what's next. And you can't do it. You have to drop in and allow it in a way to come to you, to unfold into your reality. I sort of, an image that I have is you may be sitting in a gently flowing stream, and you're sitting on the bed of the stream. And instead of fighting your way through, you are sitting and allowing the future or the energy to flow to you, into you. And if you are open and receptive and as much in the heart space, as much in love and peace, compassion as you can be, that's what the mirroring will continue to happen in that way. So rather than using the head, which is manipulating, scheming, controlling, it's about surrender for the second phase of this journey.
Surrendering to the unknown, which can be very scary. It can be it takes, because there is emotional freedom where we really have that capacity to express the range of our emotions, whether it's the fear or the guilt or the anger, whatever it is that comes up, we can express it in a healthy way without any guilt or regret or shame for our best outcomes, for our highest good, because we sometimes feel restricted to express our emotions. But when we have that freedom, when we no longer have those regrets and can walk through the pearly gates saying, I am who I am, and that is what it is. This is what it is. And when you're able to do that with compassion and love, from a place of compassion and love, there is the surrender that one then has to succumb to. And it is scary at first. It is because I found it very, very challenging to not know what would happen. I mean, we can have our intentions. We can have our intentions. We can have our goals. We can have those desires are always there. But how would you advise those who have that emotional freedom? They've come to that place where they are now surrendering, but they still have to work with the divine masculine. The divine feminine is saying surrender.
Yeah.
Divine masculine is still needing for them to take action, to be decisive, to have clarity, to really make a way for themselves and for others in their reality, to manifest. Still have to manifest. You still have to be that empowered being that you are, that light force. How do you come to that balance within you when you are surrendering and nurturing and having compassion, and you're working with the divine feminine, and you're very comfortable within your own self, wanting nothing, seeking nothing, and you're surrendering to universal force, to love? And you still have to find within yourself the energies of the infinite masculine, the divine masculine. You still got to find it within yourself. How do you advise we do that from a place of harmony?
Well, I would say that that, as you said, it's about balance. And in a simple way to do it is to allocate 2 hours or an hour a day activating the masculine, making phone calls, doing this, doing that, or however many hours you want, but actually put aside an equal amount, if not more, time to just be, to let go of trying to work out, let go of how, when, where, and why, and just be. Now, what's going to happen is doing both may bring up emotions. So what are we feeling when we let go of control and allow the energy of the universe to bring to us what we desire? We are letting go of control. And that is part of, if you would like, part of mission 1, or part of the first part of what we're here to do. We need control, we've been told, because this place is scary, and because things don't happen easily, and because of hierarchies and things. So these old, I mean, in a way, the question you asked comes from part one, and that it would never be asked in a way in part two. Can you see that? That it's not wrong to do that, but it has its roots in part one. And it's part one, or the inner child, the programming, the conditioning is still in us in this part two, but we just observe it more. So when you are worried about should I take this job or that job? This one might pay better, but I love this one more. I like the activities in this one. And there may be some conflict between the two. Now, what I would suggest is you sit down initially and say, it doesn't matter which one I do. I'm going to allow the perfect one to be magnetized to me. I'm going to surrender and see what happens. Now, that is something that is difficult to do all day because you've got bills to pay, because you have responsibilities. But if you can sit in that totally receptive, surrendered place around a decision and observe whatever you're feeling coming up, I've got to do something, breathe and feel all of those emotions with the observer activated. It's just another layer of what we are letting go of in this realm. Ejukambakueti seki kanaka dedechkonyatsa. Himbetakaryatsetsi sekia anyata sekoyatsu ebiti genyaka azetia cha. So trust in your heart, trust in your deeper mind, trust in your divine aspect to know exactly what is best for you. And just see what comes. Ejoshesiko baku inyakaya chot sakataria sende steyarstosta. Anyatsi kekekaya tsujetsi hamba etikeyakuka. And actually what's come to mind is there are stories and things of people who make decisions based on a coin toss. That's what they never involve any analysis or anything. And they're interesting stories to read. And that's taking this to the extreme, but it's along those lines that there's no such thing as a wrong decision ultimately. It's what you do within that. It's how you execute it. It's how you make that, use that moment and move forward from there. So two people can be retrenched, for example, and the first person says, oh my God, how am I going to pay bills? What is everybody going to say about me now that I'm not employed? Who am I now that I'm not that engineer or accountant? A part of my identity is gone. And the other person could be retrenched and goes, you know what? I'm going to India. I've always wanted to go. So it's the same thing, but it's what do you do with it? So on a higher level, on a big picture level, there is no wrong decision or wrong choice, that you will learn from this one or this one. And it's all sort of the same. But you're right, you set your intention, you have an idea of what you want. You're not completely passive, of course, in this, but there's a balance between surrender and action, a balance between the feminine and the masculine. So whatever you've done before, if you've been laying around on the couch waiting for something to come, then find the balance and get up and do something. Or if you've been out there doing and phone calling and organizing and scheduling and juggling, then for that person, I would say, come and sit down on the couch and see what happens.
Such a dance. It's such an interesting dance where you've got that feminine side and you've got that masculine side and the feminine activities. And then you're switching in another hour to the masculine activities and you're being led. I think the difference is the allowance, the feeling of lightness, the feeling of bliss that we have even as we dance, even as we switch. Because we have to, and I love what you said, Jo, about there is no one side that is right or wrong. Because I came from, well, I started out with a very strong divine masculine energy. And I've had to learn to really love my divine feminine energy and come into a place where I'm constantly integrating them and loving both energies and loving the dance. They're all within me, all within us. And the divine masculine is such a powerful, for me, it's my, and knowing, being honest with ourselves. There's no right or wrong. Just being honest. I'm more of a masculine person. I'm more of a feminine person. Just being honest. To know, and you said it, to know yourself. To know yourself, to know what your most natural inclinations are in this, in those personalities that we have. What are they naturally inclined for? And then which are the elements that you're having to learn a lot more of? And learning that dance between the two and knowing that you need both. And they are both elements of infinite energy, of universal energy. And we need both. I just love the dance.
Well, I was divine masculine too until about 2018. And then I sat on the couch for a while and I still struggle a little bit. I've struggled with that a lot. Not, like trying to be more receptive, because I always, as a big trier, to try to be perfect. I mean, that was what I learned as a kid, to work really hard at being perfect and good and valuable and productive. And so to actually let that go in around it was the end of 2018. And to, I took time off, but I still looked for work in that time off. And each job I went for over a 2-year period was worse than the last. Like you were overworked, or the boss was sort of had a camera on you and you couldn't, it was no, like he was always over your shoulder. Another one, the boss was crazy. So it just got worse and worse and worse. And I went, okay, I get it. Don't do it. Because it was the universe saying, you've got to find the balance. And when you've been, like you and I have, this doer, sometimes to find halfway, you have to spend some time here and really feel what it is to be receptive and open and receiving of energy and receiving of what the universe is bringing to you, and until you can find that halfway. So this is what I did from here to here, and I kept coming and trying to get work, and eventually I just went, I can't, it's just not working out, and I just let it all go. And then I started to be able to do that. But I was hanging on to the old way of doing things for about 2 years after I actually attempted to come here for a bit.
That's beautiful. And that dance, that, that moving from one end of the spectrum to another is a lifelong thing, is a journey. And I think compassion, just on a daily basis, compassion, self-care, and being aware, just being aware and honesty. And we continue on the journey. So thank you. Thank you for that really long question and answer session. I would love to hear about you a bit about your journey because I know that you were in an ashram. It was like a monk or sorry a monastery of some sort where you were. I know that when I listened to your live review, you had a lot of initiations, which were very intense because they were physical and emotional and spiritual. And you did that for a long time, for 18 years or so, long
Mm,
period before, and that was in the States before you went back to Australia. And really, sometimes I think the tools that we all choose are very different. When I read about the tools that you use for your personal transformation, amazing, amazing. You know, the one where you're going through the maze? There's a maze that you go through and you can spend 12 hours blindfolded in the forest or something
yes,
like that.
yes.
These are about the kind of modalities, and there are so many different types of modalities, but we all choose different modalities, and there's no
Mm,
right or wrong. But
mm.
when I heard the modalities that you use, I thought to myself, my goodness, you went through it in a very hard way, and
Mhm.
it was intense. Could you take us through some of those initiations and that you actually used to do your own inner child healing? Because now you're teaching it in a very nice and wonderful way.
Yes, yes. Well, I believe, like it wasn't a monastery. It was, I suppose you would call a school of the mind.
Mm,
So it was uh, a school to show you the program, I believe, ultimately. In reflection, it was a school to help us see the programming of humanity, to see how we were in survival a lot of the time, how we were in competition, how we were in judgment. Um, uh, all like a lot of the stuff that was showing the program. There was many beautiful spiritual aspects to it, esoteric aspects to it. But a lot of the disciplines, a lot of the activities and initiations were quite intense. And I mean, in a way, it was a boot camp. It was along the lines of those old Egyptian mystery schools where you could actually die in an initiation. You know, you would be, say, under some sort of temple or pyramid, and you had to dive down into the water and swim and swim and swim and go beyond the physical body and slow down your need for oxygen. So you became a master of this physical reality. And if you didn't do it, you drowned. So big deal,
mm,
you know, you failed the test and, you know, come back another lifetime. But it was not that extreme for us, but it was not sitting down and just omming, you know, and all of that. Although we did sit down and do that. We often sat out in the field and focused in the nights, in the middle of the night and things like that. So the tank or the labyrinth was, and actually I have a video alive on my YouTube channel called My Spiritual Journey. And that's about 40 minutes. And I actually go into a lot of the different disciplines and things in that, a lot of the different initiations. And as you say, it's not for everybody. And I'm not quite sure yet why I was magnetized to that school, because it sort of happened fairly quickly at around, like I went to that school when I was 27, 28, and I left when I was 46. And we didn't live there on like a compound as such, but we lived in the surrounding areas and came in and out over those, for a day or for a weekend or for a week, and sometimes for a month we were there. Umbake si di kanyotse chika otse be etisha. Kiandiastuye moko kiki tse tayastushta a eki anyaka. And there was, I knew a girl, a friend of mine, who went to see another teacher that was in another state. And she asked this person about the school. And this other person, this other channeled being said, there's nothing different between us and the school that I was in, except that we thought we had to do it the hard way. And for some reason, we thought we needed it tough. But I learned a lot about myself in those exercises. You're faced with your fears, you're faced with your limitations, you're faced with what's really running you, I think, at a deep level. And I think it sort of helped me become a really good inner child healer, because I got to see into my shadow very, very deeply and clearly. So with the labyrinth, we would be wear a blindfold, and we would start in the forest sometimes and work our way through the forest into a big, big field where the maze was. And it was a man-made maze. So it was metal frames and plastic walls, but it was reconfigured each time. And so we would work our way through that maze, and there were ladders and things that we climbed in. There were places that sent you around in circles, that sort of thing. And so the longest time I ever did that, was 12 hours, from the minute of being released in the forest to the minute that it was called and that the test was over. So you just see who you are in those situations. And it was, I mean, I would do it all over again. When I think about it, I was very fit and young when I went and did all of these things. And there were other people in the school at the time, obviously, who were my age, the age that I am now, in my 60s. And I now have a greater appreciation for their bravery. There were people there in their 60s and 70s doing the stuff that I was doing as a 20 and 30-year-old. That bravery and their dedication and their willingness to see who they were and what. So it was absolutely incredible. Very interesting.
Yes, beautiful. My goodness, I love it. And I love what you said about, doing it the hard way. And sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes that's what it takes, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And I really did just want to share that in this environment, because it's about the different modalities that exist. There are different ways um, for us to heal our inner child, and being open, being honest, and being willing to say yes, whatever it takes is what I'm going to do. And that's what it is. 12 hours blindfolded, going through the forest, falling over boulders, scratches and bruises and everything. doing whatever it takes, because the intensity of the matrix, of the system, of the subconscious, of some of the limits that we have require that. Sometimes
Mm,
it requires that, and the willingness, because I know that I have had my own versions of that, you
mm-hmm.
know, days and days of listening to subliminal audios and nothing else, and my ears could pop, you know, just allowing myself to reprogram whatever I needed to reprogram. We must have that determination when it comes to our inner child healing. So thank you for sharing that. And for really, being one of those people that we can, be inspired by in this particular very difficult journey. It's not easy. Inner child healing is definitely not something that comes easy to us. So, could you tell us how people can find you if they, you know, when they want to connect with you? How can they reach out to you?
Okay, I have a website, jogifford.com, and you will find links to booking sessions or to some of the products that I sell that will assist you. I have an online course on relationships that, improving relationships, that has a lot of light language throughout it, just like during this interview. I have a YouTube channel with a couple of hundred videos. And if you work your way through those, you will get a really good broad sampling of what I'm about. And that's the main thing. I'm not on Facebook anymore. I'm just on YouTube and on my website.
Hmm.
And I put out a newsletter. I have a mailing list. So if you want to sign up to that, I send out something once a month with links to all the things that I've been looking into or involved in over the previous month.
Thank you, Jo. And I will put all the descriptions and links in the with the video. But it's just nice for you to say it for the audio listeners. So thank you. Do you have any final words before we go?
Just hang in there. Keep looking within and finding self-love and self-like. I really think that the most important thing that we are doing here is to find love of self. And if you can love yourself no matter what's happened or not happened in your life, that is going to help shift this world in a way more than anything else.
Mm. Thank you, Jo. Thank you. And I definitely think that one of the things that can help us to shift into love is my book. This is the Daily Soul Bytes book, which is now anywhere books can be found online. It's on Kindle Select now, so it's Kindle Unlimited. And it's really about alignment to true essence, alignment to love. No, because a lot of the times we are disconnected from our true self, from that true being that we are. And a lot of the nuggets I share in the book is really about understanding the perspectives, the empowering perspectives of the higher self. So we can become much more familiar with it. Because when we become familiar, we can practice a lot more and allow it and develop that trust. So it's a journey, it's a 31-day journey into a deeper alignment to true essence. So, yes, I am looking forward to it being a modality for those who resonate and those who read it. And I also invite all my listeners and followers to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that we can have more of these contents shared far and wide. And I do look forward to connecting with everyone again soon. And I'm saying thank you again to Jo for joining me today and thanking our audience for connecting with us. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Daily Soul Bytes Show. Bye bye.